The worst president in any living person's lifetime has done it again. Carter has marched to the front of the race-baiting crowd and charged you with being a racist because you don't like what our African-American president is doing. What is an overwhelming portion? I mean, he's trying to say there are some racists out there, but he wants to make it far worse than it actually is. So it is an overwhelming portion. This raises the charge from the nattering of Obama supporters in the media, hacks, by the way, to the level of a Nobel Prize winner. Granted, Carter campaigned for that prize by bashing George W. Bush, and he was awarded that prize for bashing George W. Bush. But still, for the left, it gives the race charge something that approaches gravitas, something they can hang their race-baiting hat on. Bata Boy treated the natterings of this ex-president so old he probably wouldn't be allowed to drive as, oh boy, breaking news.
Breaking news at this hour, saying the inclination to racism in this country still exists. Former President Jimmy Carter has tonight told NBC News that it has again bubbled up to the surface and that much of the most extreme animosity towards President Obama stems from the belief, again, quoting President Carter, that African Americans are not qualified to lead this great country, unquote.
Dun, 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 dun. Breaking news. Jimmy Carter opines on racism. Da, 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 da. News.
The theory that at least those on the fringes of the kind of political road rage against the 44th president are there because of racism or latent racism or just racial fear may now move to the center of the nation's political discourse. In our fifth story tonight, this after remarks today by former President Jimmy Carter in an interview with Brian Williams for NBC Nightly News. The 39th president who watched his native Georgia grow from lynching and Jim Crow to comparative enlightenment in less than half his own lifetime minced no words about what he sees behind the anger supposedly focused on the issue of health care.
That boy didn't mention if Brian Williams was the one holding the drool cup. Jimmy Carter opining on this. And we are supposed to take this as gospel. Then he rolls out Lawrence O'Donnell. I mean, we got a real race-baiting network over there now. If you're a white and you don't like what President Obama is doing, you are a racist. There just is no other explanation.
It's one thing if you wrote about this or commented about this. What happens if it is a former president of the United States, any former president of the United States, but as you alluded to, particularly this one who gives voice to this?
Well, this is a real voice of authority. And I think when you look at something like the health care bill, which is, in any version, is going to be over 1,000 pages long. It has many particulars, including tax increases that are specified as tax increases, other things that are called fee increases that you could argue are tax increases. I could go on and on with substantive arguments that the Republican side of this, our politics, could be making against these bills. And instead, they've been up there trying to slander Barack Obama and talk about death penalty, talk about things that aren't even in the bill because they're afraid of something other than the bill. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you have someone like Jimmy Carter talking about this from his life experience, this has to be taken very seriously.
Well, no, it doesn't. Larry, for God's sakes. I mean, don't focus entirely on health care. Yeah, people object to it. And yeah, they are afraid of death panels because they can see what's going on in Britain. They call it the pathway to death there. What about all the rest of it that people don't like? The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the $878 billion stimulus package that was supposed to produce 3.5 million jobs, according to Obama, has produced exactly, all right, not exactly, but at best anybody can guess, 1,000 jobs. From 3.5 million jobs to 1,000. $878 billion in debt to create 1,000 jobs.
As Barack says, a three-letter word, jobs, J-O-B-S, jobs.
To paraphrase James Carville, it's the jobs, stupid. But because they have been caught in their failure and their lies, they have to call it racism.
Are there other explanations for it, or does the idea that there is a racist element of the country, a fear. Is that the only explanation, or are there other explanations for this generalized, ill-defined anger?
I don't have another one when I look at the preceding model for this, which was Hillary Clinton's crusade in the same legislative arena. Now, Hillary Clinton was despised by that side of the world as a crazy lefty. They attacked her on policy grounds. They were screaming about the employer mandate. They did not say we want the country back. They weren't saying these same things. They were talking about the bill. These people have not been talking about what's in the bill. I've never seen that before in opposition to legislation. You oppose legislation by talking about what's in it. They're not talking about that. I've been bothered by some very quick dismissals, for example, at the notion that, oh, no, the Joe Wilson thing was not a racial incident in any way. There were no racial overtones to that at all. No, I think there's something very legitimate to consider, and I think that it's incumbent on Joe Wilson to come out and somehow prove to us that this son of South Carolina, born into segregation, grew up in it, that no, he's completely clean on this. I mean, let him come to the podium now. Let him explain to Brian Williams, explain to you.
Explain to Bathtub Boy? Go on Bathtub Boy show? Oh, that would be... As if Bathtub Boy would ever put anybody on his show who doesn't believe exactly what he believes and isn't willing to parrot exactly what he parrots.
To expand on this further, let's go with Marcos Malitzis, the founder, publisher of Daily Kos, author, of course, of Taking on the System. Marcos, thanks for your time tonight.
Pleasure, anytime. As
I suggested to Lawrence O'Donnell, it's one thing if he or I were to say this. It's one thing if your readers or diarists were to say this. What does it mean that it's President Carter saying this?
Well, it does carry a certain level of authority, not just intellectual, moral authority. This guy is a guy who grew up in the South, knows the South better than probably most people. I mean, I think he really feels this deeply, that this is something that troubles him, and it's a problem that America needs to deal with.
Where is the current president on this? We have a race war raging now in the media, and I don't see the president stepping forward. His silence on this is telling. He did call Kanye a jackass.
He's a jackass.
Thankfully, why is he not calling these supporters playing the race cards jackasses too?
He's a jackass.
One is left with the conclusion because he thinks they are right.
Okay, so if there were any doubts, John Gibson, racist.
People remember when they have been insulted to the core. It sticks with them. The MSNBC, now the National Racist Channel, racism against white people.
Oh, shizzle dizzle, he's got it going on.
Oh, shizzle my nizzle. I'm shizzle my nizzle.
John Gibson.
That's the anthem. Get your damn hands up.